Have you ever wanted to grow a lot of vegetables, but you just don't have the space to do it? One of the ways that we can overcome limited space is using a raised bed garden, and that's what I'm going to build here today. I want to do a comprehensive review of a raised bed, how to build it from scratch. We're going to have a trellis on the back for tomatoes, so we're going to introduce some vertical growing structures here to maximize the amount of vegetables that we can get out of 25 square feet. Our box is going to be 5 by 5, so that gives us 25 square feet to grow some vegetables. I'm going to go over how to prep the ground, how to build the box, how to build the trellis, and then also the media that I'm going to use inside of the box. I'm not going to use just regular topsoil, so hang with me. I want to go over all of those elements with you on this build, so let's get started. This area here has in the past traditionally been a daylily bed for me. So the first thing I had to do was move around some daylilies and prep an area to where we can begin to build our raised bed. So the first thing that I want to talk about is site selection for a raised bed for a garden. You need full sun. So full sun is defined as 8 or more hours of direct sunlight a day. This is probably the sunniest spot I have in my yard. East is this way and the sun raises over here. South is behind the camera, west is over here. So the sun tracks like this, and this has sun all day. That's why my daylilies are here. They do a fantastic job here. The first thing that we need to do is to make sure the ground is more or less level, or at least the footing, not necessarily the area that's going to be inside the box, but the footing is going to be pretty much level. So the tools for the job here, you just need a bubble level, and for a raised garden this small, we're just going to lay our wood here. So the thing we got to do here is level our board. So you need your bubble level. And I can tell here that this side's a little high. So really all I'm gonna do is just take the bud in, the ground's pretty loose, knock some of that dirt away. And right there, I'm dead level. So I'm level on this plane. I need to be level on the other plane as well. So all I'm gonna do is take my board, more or less keep that corner. And right here, we're gonna make sure this board's level as well. So on this end, that's got to go down about 2 inches, and I'm also going to have to move another daylily here. Okay, so now that our two boards are level on this plane, I'm going to use a T-square and make sure they're squared up to each other pretty good. They're pretty close. I need to kick this board out just a little bit, not much at all, because what will happen is if we're off on this end, when we go back to tie around on this other corner, they're going to be off. This board would be further out than the board coming towards the camera, and we would have some, what we'll call the non-scientific term, finagling, that we would need to do on some of these boards. But if you go ahead and use a T-square, you can eliminate some of that. This looks pretty good here. For good measure, I'm gonna take my bubble level, make sure that we're still squared up. I'm gonna square it vertically, both boards. That looks pretty good. And then horizontally as well. That's still dead on the money. And that's dead on the money. So we're good. We can move to the next step on this corner. So we're going to attach these two corners, and what I'm going to use are these galvanized L brackets. When you go get an L bracket, make sure they're galvanized, because we are going to bury these, and if they're not galvanized, they'll rust out in a matter of a year or two. To attach them to the board, we've got a 1.5 inch wood screw. So these are 2x4, so really their width isn't a true 2 inches. It's like 1 3/4 inches. So I use an 1.5 inch wood screw. It has a star bit in it, and we're just going to attach a screw to each side of this corner right here. Okay, so this corner is in, so we've got to repeat that same process for the front side and also this other side remaining. But this 90-degree section of the planter in terms of installing it is complete. Okay, so now that our structure is built, let's go around and take a look at it real quick. I want to point out a few things to you. Notice how we're pretty much square and flush here. This is just an old piece of insulation I need to pull off. But I'm only using one bracket. You could do 2 brackets if you wanted to. With 2x6s, I don't think that's really necessary. But you could do a bottom bracket and a top bracket if you wanted. But you can see here, we're all squared up, level, everything looks good. So let's talk about what we're going to do next. The next thing that we're going to do is we are going to level out the soil that's within the box. I want a level, flat ground before I bring in my media. So now our ground is level and we're ready to put in our media. So let's go take a look at how we mix up our potting media. So these are the 3 primary ingredients for our base for our media that's going to go in our raised garden bed. I will top it with something different, but I have sand, I have pine bark, and I have peat moss, and we're going to do an equal mix of all 3. So this sand is actually where the reclaimed lumber came from. This was a propagation box. I'm just reusing the sand. This pine bark I always keep on hand just because I'm all the time potting something up. I buy this in bulk. And then the peat moss I actually buy just like anybody else. I don't buy it at a bulk stockyard. I just go to Lowe's and buy it by the bags. But we're just going to go 1, 2, 3. That's 2 rounds of that. And then we're just going to start mixing it up really good. I want a nice homogeneous mixture. I don't want all the sand in one corner and all the peat in one corner and all the pine bark in another corner. We want it nice and level, or I shouldn't say level. We want it nice and homogeneous all the way through. Now that we have our media in place, what I want to do is put some vertical risers on the back of this bed. I also want to take a minute to talk about how I'm going to arrange my plants within the raised bed. So in general, if you can plant your crops north-south, you're going to get more sun on them if you were to plant them east-west. So I'm facing due south towards the camera right now. And so the sun tracks here. The sun can go right down the middle of the rows to get more of the smaller plants here. And then on the back end, my tallest plants, they're not shading out the front plants. So just keep that in mind. It's a little trick that I learned back in the day. And so we're going to use the same screw that we used earlier. This is an 1.5 inch screw. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get it started in this 1x4. That way when I hold it vertical, I'm not trying to balance the screw as well. So I'm going to take my 1x4 and put it flush against this back board right here. And I'm just going to put 1 screw in it. The reason we only put 1 screw in it is because I want to take the bubble level, make sure I get it level. That's level there. And then we'll put our 2nd screw in. So for good measure, I'm going to add a 3rd one right in the middle. So I've already got the middle marked here. So you can just run a tape measure from one point to the other and find the midpoint and then put the middle of your board there, and you know you'll be centered up. And if my math is correct, this will be centered. So we have our 1st screw in, so let's put our bubble level on it. Right there's level. And we'll put in our 2nd screw. So in between shots, we had a rain shower come through. So if you're wondering how I magically changed clothes, that's how. But we're back out here, and the next thing we've got to do is we're going to build vertical structure for tall plants in the back to lean up against. I'm thinking we'll put vine tomatoes back here. So all we're doing is we're going to use those same screws that we used to build our box, and we are going to screw them into these 1x4s here. But we're not going to screw them all the way in. We're going to leave about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch hanging out, and we're going to take carpenter twine, and we are going to tie our carpenter twine to the screws, and we're going to go all the way across. We're going to do this on 6-inch intervals. So 6 inches up, another 6 inches up, another 6 inches up. So we'll have a series of strings running up these boards, so our plants down here have something to attach to. So viney plants like tomatoes, they like to be tied up. So we'll use horticulture tape to tie our vines to our string. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put a layer of ash down on top of our raised bed. I did a video on the benefits of ash. I'll try to link that here. So if you want to look at the benefits of doing this, you can. But we're just going to take this ash. I've collected it out of my chimenea and actually burned some limbs the other day in the yard. And we're going to spread this out evenly over the top. There's a reason that I did not incorporate this in the media when we mixed up our pine bark and our sand and our peat. The reason being is I want the nutrients to be on top and they filtrate through this entire soil layer. If we incorporate it into the soil layer, there'll be some of those nutrients down on the bottom that the roots of the plants that we're going to put in here will never get to. So we're maximizing the amount of nutrients that our plants will receive by doing this. So all I'm going to do now, I'm just going to take a rake and evenly distribute these ashes all across the bed. One last step we did for aesthetics and for ease of getting in and out of this area is we used a mimic grade pine bark mulch to make a walking path in and then down both sides of our raised bed. And that's it. So this is going to be part of a mini series that we're doing. We'll walk through what plants we're going to put in here, what fertilizer regimen I'm going to put them through, what watering regimen I'm going to put them through. And so stay tuned for that. As always, thank you for watching The Plant Doctor. And until next time, happy gardening.